feel the music with the Sony Walkman.
The Sony Walkman is a tiny stereo cassette player with truly incredible sound.
You really feel the music, you really feel it. You really feel the music.
Put on a Walkman and see the world in a whole new light.
Sony Walkman.
The Walkman from Sony, the one and only.
Welcome to another episode of Two Rad Dads, where nostalgia bridges the generation gap. I'm Matt.
I'm Sean.
So I've been getting a lot of feedback from friends and family about our podcast, and it's kind of funny that, you know, my parents, especially my mom and the older generations and stuff, are way more into this than I anticipated.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And my mom keeps bringing up, like, oh, there's so much I want to say. Like, if we were live, you know, if I was talking with you and we're talking about this, like the stories and, you know, about, you know, my mullet haircuts and all this stuff. So I think what we're going to do is we are going to have my mom on for one of the episodes.
Okay.
And she can fill all our listeners in on some of the backstories and stuff.
She's gonna have to listen back to all the episodes and start taking some notes. You know, she's gonna come with a notebook to flip through.
Oh yeah. I'm sure she will. They're on vacation. My parents are on vacation right now, and my mom was planning on listening to all the episodes on the plane. So.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So even though she's listened to most of them, but she said she was going to listen to them on the plane and have my aunt and uncle listen as well. So nice. I think we're going to enjoy some of the stories of me back in the day.
I mean, I'll enjoy that.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the dirt. I'm ready for it.
Yeah. So I think depending on how it goes and the feedback we get on that special episode, might make it more of a regular thing.
Yeah, we've been talking for a while about having some more people join us here. We're just trying to find the right time, the right topic, the right people. You know, it's hard enough for us to get together once a week to do this. So, but definitely we want to do that. We keep talking about it. We got to get it done.
And like we were just looking at our stats, right? Our podcast stats right before this, and the age group that we thought we're going to be hitting would be us. But it seems like a lot of our listeners are 45 plus.
Yeah, which is funny.
Which is funny.
I'm surprised, but maybe it's because instead of being nostalgic about the stuff, they're maybe understanding what they missed from the other side.
Well, I think they are just having a lot of memories brought back. You know, when we're talking about the back to school stuff. You know, my mom was saying, do you remember this? Do you remember that? You guys were doing this. You were doing that. So
they were around for all of it. Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah, so
they're just looking at it through a different lens.
Correct. And they have better memory because for us, you know, we're kids. We don't really understand everything. We're just like caught up in the hype of everything and going through it. Mm-hmm. So they have, you know, a better view, you know, a higher view over everything. So it's kind of fun. You know, having those discussions. And then I thought we were going to irritate our kids more with this podcast too, which I was excited about.
Yeah.
But they all secretly are enjoying this.
Yeah, they are. They seem to be.
And I'm taking my youngest.
He's our biggest fan.
Out because he is by far our biggest fan. He talks about it in kindergarten to all his classmates and his teacher all the time.
We got a text from the kindergarten teacher.
Yeah.
She figured out who it was. The podcast that he was talking about.
Yeah.
We're popular in kindergarten class. Yeah. That's right.
And unfortunately, they're not old enough to stream, so they don't hit our stats.
No. That's okay.
Yeah, but he updates all his classmates and stuff every time we drop a new episode. So it's kind of funny.
He's our chief evangelist.
Yes. Yeah. So he is our number one rad kid for sure.
I will say every time I go over your house, I was just over your house for on Sunday and leaving, every single time when we say bye. He looks at me and goes, "Until next time," and then I have to stay rad.
Does he really?
Yes, he does.
I didn't.
It's awesome. I love it.
did not know that. That is amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's great. I laugh every time.
Yeah, and he's been practicing his lines too for the next
Yeah.
time he does the trivia. So
Yeah. He seems to be enjoying doing that.
oh
so.
yeah, he loves it. Super nervous every
It'll
time he
be-
gets up front of the microphone, but he loves it.
And hey, once he can read, man, he's going to be unstoppable.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's getting there.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about today?
I think today we're going to dive into music for the first time. We haven't really touched on music yet.
Yeah, and music, you know, in the 80s and 90s was a big part of our lives.
For sure. Yeah.
Some of the best music ever came out in the late 80s, early 90s. I think a lot of it still can't be touched upon. I think we're going to dive more into that in future episodes when we start looking at specific years or genres or bands, things like that. But today we're going to talk about the fun that we used to have with trying to make the best mixed tapes.
Yeah. Yeah. Just sharing music in general, right? Like the way we consumed it and the way we shared it with each other. That's the focus of the podcast today.
Started with all the stress in the world in the 80s while you're listening to the radio, all the way up through the ease of the peer-to-peer sharing and everything in
Downloading.
between. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you ever have a record player?
Yes. Yeah.
So we had one in the house, but I remember as a toddler, and maybe a little older than that, having the Sesame Street record player with Big Bird on it.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I remember seeing
Yeah.
those.
And we had, little records, I think there were 9-inch ones that had like Disney songs and other kids' stories and things like that on it. Kind of started with that. I remember having that when I was little, but even when around that same time, records were already, kind of over because cassettes were becoming the hot new thing. 8-tracks had already come and gone. Records were finishing up and cassettes were the big deal.
So did you have any of favorite vinyls that you would listen to? Whether they're
Not
the Sesame
really.
Street ones or Disney ones or anything like that.
No, I mean, I don't really recall anything that sticks out. We had like those kid ones, and then, in the house we had I think most houses had those giant, 4-foot tall stereo units with the huge speakers and, the turntable on the top and maybe a dual cassette deck and a radio in the middle, little storage cabinet underneath where you put the records. I think everybody had those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, most of those weren't my records. Those were my parents' old records. So at the time, I mean, I probably would appreciate that music more now than I would have then.
Yeah. So my dad had a decent record collection, but the one that me and my siblings would listen to all the time, and even moving into, cassettes and, CDs or whatever, we would still have him play this record. It was Cool Rock, I believe is what it was called. And it had all those fun little songs like Purple People Eater and Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini and all those fun songs. Fun Rock is actually, I think, what it was called.
Well, and if you're wrong, your mom will let us know.
And we played that all the way through, and I can't even find it. Like I want to download it.
Yeah.
And I can't find it anywhere.
Well, because those were probably all songs that were, released individually as part of other albums, and it was a compilation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's hard to find compilations after the fact.
But yeah, it was always fun trying to put the needle on, especially if you knew, oh, it's the third song I want, and you're trying to get it, nail it perfect. And it's such an art form trying to do that.
Yeah, I remember we had a holiday, like Christmas tunes we'd play sometimes,
Oh,
but
yeah.
mostly that was on cassette. And my sister used to listen to the Grease soundtrack on vinyl all the time, and it drove me. I hated that thing. I hated it. So I probably have more negativity looking back at that than I do anything. Just, oh God, that thing just, you can only hear it so many times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So you never took it and started doing the disc jockey with it, the record scratches?
No. No, I probably joked about it once and got yelled at, so I don't think I'd ever made that mistake again. Yeah. Yeah. But, records were there. But like I said, it's kind of like now, like our kids looking at something like a CD, right? Like they know what it is. They might be able to.
Do they, though?
Heck yeah. Although, maybe I'm wrong.
No, it's just too far gone.
Actually, I have a better example. It's kind of akin to our kids and DVDs or Blu-rays, right? Like they know what they are.
Yeah.
They can play them. There's probably a player in their house, but they're used to streaming everything.
Yeah, because the older kids used them a little bit when they were real young.
Yeah.
So they
in their house, they grew up with them around.
Yep.
They had they'll look back and be like, oh yeah, my parents had a whole mess of DVDs and Blu-rays, and I used to play the movies. But yeah, they're definitely used to the streaming now instead. So it's kind of like that, in that like we knew what it was, we knew how to use it, but it wasn't really our thing. Cassette players.
Yeah,
that was the jam.
So did you ever sit up front of the radio waiting for your song to come on?
Hundreds of times. So many times.
So
more than I want to admit.
So how many songs did you actually have the full song? Usually they're missing the first 3 seconds, 4 seconds.
No, because the DJ's talking about it, right? They're finishing an ad read, or the DJ won't shut up. 78 degrees downtown. We're coming at you with a 5-song rock block. And it's like, shut up. I just want to hear the freaking song.
Yeah. And did you ever call into the radio station and be like, oh, I want to hear this song, and then just sit and wait? Or did you just sit around waiting for it to come on?
Oh, no, we definitely did both. So I definitely remember sitting around and, waiting for my song to come on. And, there was a funny thing, because you'd hear, you're waiting for that first beat, right? It's almost like playing Name That Tune,
Yep.
Because you don't want to record everything, because then you got to stop, rewind your tape, cue it back up to the right spot. You'd have to do that over and over again, just hoping that you'd hit the right one. But no, we definitely did call in and request songs, especially like if my parents weren't home or I was over a friend's house or something like that. Oh yeah, you just call up and be like, I want to hear this song, and then you'd sit there for 2 hours just waiting and hoping that would be the next thing to come on.
Yeah, and I don't know about the radio stations that you grew up with, but I know there was one or two in our area where the DJs knew people were doing this. Yeah. And so there's certain blocks of times, either during the evening or on the weekends or whatever, where they would cue everything up. They'd be like, oh, and next up it's, Guns N' Roses. And so that way there, it's like, okay, you knew, all right, I can hit record now.
Yeah. Even still, they'd be talking over the song though, right? No,
they were usually pretty good at, queuing it up, letting you know what was coming up, and then letting it go.
Well, you're luckier than I am, because I did not have that experience at all.
Yeah, like during the regular days and stuff like that, most DJs, they would always start, fade in while they're still talking for 30 seconds. But no, there was I remember there was a block with a particular DJ, and they would cue everything up so you could record.
I remember they would have, request hours or whatever, right?
Yep.
Where it was only requests they were playing. But you had thousands and thousands of people calling in, so the odds.
Well,
of
yeah,
you
where you
being
grew up,
selected
not,
are-
not
Oh, you
in
never
my
did.
neck of the woods.
All right, that's true. Yeah, maybe up here in the woods, you could just run down to the radio station and knock on the door and ask them. But yeah, I didn't have that. I would call and get a busy signal all day.
Yeah.
I'd have to break out the *66,
Yeah.
the busy signal fix. Break that thing out, try to get through.
Yeah, and then did you have the dual tape cassette players? So that way there
Absolutely.
you could easily
Tape to tape?
tape to tape. You wouldn't have to wait for the radio. If you knew someone that had
No.
a cassette, you just put
Borrow
it
it.
in.
Yeah. Could I borrow that tape? Can I borrow that tape? And you'd make your own copy, your bootleg copy of it. Or you'd ask somebody, hey, if I give you a blank tape, can you make a copy of that?
Yeah, yeah.
That happened all the time, constantly. My God, people were complaining about, bootlegging CDs and, ripping CDs and sharing MP3s and stuff. But it was no different before. We just did it in a different way.
Yep.
We were still making illegal copies all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
And then eventually, we did CD to tape in the same fashion, right? You just pop the CD in, hit play, and hit record on the cassette deck. But no different. But yeah. Do you remember rewinding cassettes with pencil? Stick the pencil in the little hole, and you'd turn that thing to, when the tape got pulled out, you'd have to.
I don't know why I always tried using my finger. Stick my pinky in.
Yeah,
and
everyone
it
did. I did
hurt
too,
like a
and it would
son of
never
a
work.
gun.
Or it would
Oh,
hurt.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like, let me put my finger in a cheese grater.
Yeah, so that's why the pencils are shaped like they are, so they can fit easily into turn.
That's right.
Not so they don't roll off
Yeah.
the desk.
When you had
it's
all
so
your-
you could rewind your cassettes.
After you go back to school shopping and you get your fresh number
Yeah.
2 pencils, you can take those out and rewind your cassette tapes.
Or when they get hooked and then they come out and you're gonna wind it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah, when the tape all
yeah.
gets ripped out, it gets caught in your player and you pull it out and you're like, oh crap. Yeah. The best thing though was the mixtapes.
Yes.
Not just recording that one song that you want or things like that, but specifically choosing your selections.
Yeah, you had your love songs for your significant other.
That's right.
And then you had your road trip mixes. And then if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
just hanging out in the parking lots with your buddies, you had that mix. And then your trunk was just full of different cassettes. And it's like, oh, hey, we want to listen to this now. You run out, go in your backpack or whatever you had, pull out your tapes and stick them in. It was fun. Then it moved over into, CDs eventually, which was easier to carry dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of those around. But with the cassettes, you had a suitcase.
Yeah, the cassettes. That's right. You had those little suitcases, little brown fake leather suitcases. You'd flip those things open like a briefcase is what they looked like.
Yep.
They weren't even suitcases. Yeah, a little fake leather briefcase that you'd pop open. You look like you were going to a business meeting. You'd pop that thing open. Nope, he's just got a lot of tunes.
Yep. And you hoped that you used the right type of pen when you're writing on the cases so they wouldn't fade off. And yeah.
I used to get really specific with that. I'd label all the tapes, but then I'd label, I used to make custom inserts for the cases. Do you ever do that?
I did for a little bit, but I was so impatient with that stuff. So
I remember doing that, like cutting paper out that was the right shape and folding it into the little cassette thing and writing on it.
see, when it came to the CDs, and by that time, you had the pre-perforated sheets to go through your printer and stuff like that. So it made it a lot easier. So I did more of those, but yeah, not so much for the cassettes.
Yeah, I did it for both. I don't know. I just thought it was fun. I don't know. But yeah, I had all kinds of mixes.
Yeah.
Lots of road trip mixes for sure, especially once I started driving.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You'd have to make a ton because the thing that's hard to, wrap your head around now is you couldn't just listen to any song you wanted anytime you wanted, right? I mean, our kids don't understand what that's like,
No.
you know?
If you're going on a road trip, you're limited to whatever CDs or cassettes you had in the car.
Yeah, well, you go on a road trip, you end up discovering all the random radio stations that are all over the country, right? Like you end up between cities, and you know every hour and a half you gotta fiddle with the radio and try to find
Or
something new.
not
and
even.
scan
It's
through, and
every 30 miles.
like, all right, we lost that station. Let's see what we can find. You know, you
Yeah.
start scrolling through. Well, let's see what's this. Oh, I found Froggy 101. All right, let's go with that for a while. Yeah.
And the Sony Walkmans. Did you have one of those?
Yes.
Yeah.
I had like a fake one, you know, a knock. I had a couple knockoffs, you know, the cheaper ones, because I was a kid and I was breaking stuff constantly. So, you know, we didn't get the very expensive. I ended up getting one later, but I started out with a couple of the knockoff brands, you know. I probably had like a Magnavox or something, you know, but you know, eventually I got a Sony one, but those things were awesome.
Yeah.
They were huge, right? It's like clipping a giant book to your belt loop or something, but
Hey, you were cool though.
they were great.
Yeah.
I will say though, the tape players were amazing. The portable cassette Walkmans and the knockoffs were awesome.
Yep.
What sucked was those headphones they came with.
Yes.
Those things were the worst. You had those little puffball ear things, right?
Yep.
That were very uncomfortable, and they always ripped. The foam always ripped.
Oh, yeah.
And you'd have the inside piece like jutting into your ear, the hard plastic. And then across the top of your head, you'd have the wire that would expand in and out to adjust to your head. And that thing would always catch your hair and like rip your hair out when you're trying to adjust the things.
Yeah, and it was a sharp piece of metal that slid between these cheap pieces of plastic, and it was
It
always
would
stuck
grab
in your hair.
and just pull it right with it.
And then,
Oh, it was
then
terrible.
if the plastic broke for whatever reason, it was just the metal on your head. It was scratching the top of your head all the time. There's no padding, nothing.
Yeah, the ability to take your tunes with you, amazing. Those headphones, garbage.
Yep. And it's not like you had much of a choice for headphones, because all the good ones were the big, massive things, and they were pretty expensive. So then you go from that to these cheapos.
Yeah,
and
you
they're-
either get the cheapos or you get the giant like cans, you know, those
Yeah,
huge things.
the big monitors. Yeah.
Yeah, that had, and those wouldn't even fit in it anyways because those always had the bigger plug.
Yep.
But yeah, no, that was great. You try to do activities at those, and you'd be like, I'm gonna wear this while I go outside and play street hockey, or I'm gonna wear this while I'm riding my bike. It always sounded great in theory,
Yep.
and then you'd go to do it, and you know, halfway through the thing comes crashing down because you hit the wire. Your headphones keep unplugging, and
Yep.
constantly knocking them around, or the thing falls off your pants.
But it was the coolest feeling when you're like, I've got to switch sides or to switch cassettes, and it's just on your belt, and you hit the eject button and it slides open, and then you just slide out the tape and you put the new one in, and then you snap it closed. You're like, yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then when it went over and evolved into the Discmans,
Yes, the disc.
so
fan.
those had a wider range of, oh, these are awesome and not awesome.
Yes.
Because with the discs, they were spinning. So you need the anti-shock, which
Correct.
not a lot of them had in the beginning.
Yeah. So you could get away with the knockoff Walkmans because it's just playing a cassette tape. It is what it is, you know. It's not that different. But the Discman, yeah, those things, the cheap knockoffs of those, you could put a CD in. It wouldn't play the CD, right? It would play little pieces of it. It would be all pixelated, kind of, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and forget it if you had a scratch on your CD. They
That's
would
what I
not read it.
The
at all.
tiniest,
Yeah.
faintest little scratches those things could not handle. And if you even like looked at it the wrong way, it would skip.
Yep.
Never mind trying to actually be portable, but there was no portability whatsoever. It was portable as far as you could take it somewhere you were leaving the house.
Yep.
But you couldn't actually like walk around with it on.
Yeah. So I actually believe I still have, I think it's a Magnavox,
Mm-hmm.
and it had the anti-shock, and it worked.
I think I still have one
Yeah.
kicking around somewhere.
Yeah. I know Shocker. I have it, right?
Yeah.
um,
It's like a running theme here.
Yeah, I know.
We're
I
like,
know.
oh yeah, we talk about those old technology. We're like, oh yeah, I still have one of those.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why you can't get into my utility room right now, because I have all the old stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with the Discmans, they were still popular, but I don't think as popular as the original Walkmans, just because of that issue of it.
Yeah, the
skipping
Walkmans actually
and-
worked better.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were more functional.
Yeah.
The Walkman's one of the like most influential pieces of technology in the last century. It's crazy.
Yeah, because
but
it
really
replaced
is.
the boom boxes.
It led
You
to
know,
yeah,
walking
yeah.
down the beach with the big stereo
Giant
on your
boombox.
shoulder. Like seeing that in movies and stuff and in commercials,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I know people actually did that,
Fresh
but
Prince.
how are their shoulders these days? Like from carrying that around, because those weren't light stereos.
No, I didn't have one of those proper boom boxes, but I had one of those shelf unit ones with a handle.
Yeah.
I could pick it up and
Yeah.
walk around with it. You know, it had a CD player on top, one cassette deck in the front, had a radio, you know, an antenna you could pull up if you needed it. And it had a handle. You could either plug it in or use batteries.
Yep.
One or the other. So I had one of those, but it was maybe half the size of those giant boom boxes.
It took what, like 6 or 8 D batteries,
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
and still only lasted like an
Speaking
hour.
of what we just said a minute ago, I actually still have it. It's in my garage. Funny enough. But yeah, before, like after that, everyone started getting those shelf units with the detachable speakers.
Yep.
Those huge things. I don't have that anymore. But yeah, the other they just take up too much space.
Yep.
You know. But for those, you could get the ones that had the dual cassette decks. So that was like a big deal because you could do the tape to tape.
Big time. Big time.
But CDs were fun. It's funny, you talk about the portable CD player. And did you ever try to hook it up in your car?
Yes. So if you didn't have a CD player in your car, you had that
Yeah.
digital cassette
Nobody
that
did.
plugged into the headphone jack of the CD
That's right.
player. Yeah.
But you would need more than that. So you needed the cigarette lighter, which it was a cigarette lighter still.
Yes.
It wasn't just, you know, a power spot. It was an actual cigarette lighter. You'd pull the cigarette lighter out. You'd plug in the power cable that would go to your CD player. Then you'd plug in the auxiliary cable to the radio. So you'd have 2 long cables sticking out in your car. Then you'd have to find somewhere sort of flat to try to put the CD player so it didn't skip too badly.
Which never worked because every time you took a corner, it went flying
No.
off somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. You'd have to pretty much like tape it down to your dashboard or something, try to Velcro it maybe. And I used to try to put it on the passenger seat. That didn't really work that great. And every bump you'd go over, it would skip. But at the same time, I loved it. It
Yeah.
was amazing because you could finally take your stuff with you. I'd have a few CDs in my car all the time. It was awesome. So we didn't care, right? It was just like, oh, it skips, whatever. It's fine. But it was way better than having just radio.
So you only had a few CDs in your car?
I did. I never had the big multi-disc changers, you know?
Oh,
So,
man. Yeah.
I didn't take everything with me. Like most people had those giant wallets, right? Those huge books.
Yes. So I had, for a while, I had the visor clip that held like a dozen or so
Yeah.
CDs.
yeah, that's
So it's
about all
quick,
I would
easy
have.
access. Then I also had the book that
Mhm.
held, God, I think it was upwards of 100.
They were
CDs.
huge.
Yeah.
Things. And they weighed a ton when you actually had them
They
filled.
did. Yeah. Yeah, so I had that floating around. I pretty sure I still have that somewhere.
No.
Yeah, I gotta find this stuff and just start like putting it in the background here in the office when I finish.
I actually don't have any of those. I had a small wallet that would fit like 12. Right. That's pretty much what I use.
So
I actually, you know what? I still. I don't know that I still have it. To be honest, I might, but I might not. I think I finally got rid of it a few years ago. It was a Pepsi wallet that I bought using Pepsi points.
Oh, nice.
Do you remember that?
Oh,
remember the contest where they had the guy that wanted to win like the fighter jet?
Yeah, we're gonna have to do an episode on that. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that thing where they you'd collect Pepsi points and you'd send them in and you'd get prizes. And I selected the CD wallet.
Awesome.
And I had it for years and years up until very recently. I think when I moved a couple of years ago, I finally got rid of it.
Yeah. So I know so the podcast can't see, but I know you can. Here's my spindle of these are all burned CDs, custom mixes. There's got to be on this spindle probably 150, 200 custom CDs that I had made.
Giant spindle. I've got a few of those too, kicking around.
Yeah. So I actually just threw out. I had 2 brand new spindles of blank CDs that I just threw out like a few months ago because I'm like, you can't. None of the computers even come with.
No, you can't even get an optical drive anymore with these things.
Yeah. So in my office, I literally just turned around and here's my spindle of custom CDs, and I know that this is just a small portion of what I have floating around the house. So
I've got some in the cabinet right here. So, no joke. Now, do you have CD RWs or CDRs or Plus? Remember there was all those different kinds?
Yeah, so let's see. Here's a CDR 80 minute 700 meg DVD-R.
Yeah.
What's this one? CDRW. It's a rewritable.
Yeah, that's right.
74 minutes.
You didn't have to commit to it. You could change your mind.
Yeah.
Put something new on there.
I've got all kinds. The AT&T version, the Staples versions.
Yeah, I've still got a bunch too. Just in case, you never know.
Yeah, you don't know.
Yeah, I made lots of CDs. I mean, I made a lot of mixtapes when I was a kid, for sure.
I did way
both
more
using
CDs.
the radio and using tapes and CDs. I definitely made tons of mixtapes, but burning CDs, oh my God. When that came out, I was all over that. I remember everyone had to get the burning drive, right?
Yep.
For their desktop computers. They'd get the CD burners. You had your giant Gateway 2000 cow print computer. Get the big CD burning drive in there.
It was not a coffee cup holder. It was a CD drive.
Yeah, that's right. Hit the little button.
Do you remember that was a thing when the CD drives first came out? People thought they were retractable cup holders.
I mean, it kind of looks like that. I didn't think anyone actually believed that. I thought it was just kind of something joked about. But
well, if they're joking about it, somebody's done it.
That's true. There's always somebody. Yeah, that's what we did. Because once we had CDs, right, you started to rip them. Did you rip CDs?
Oh, yeah.
I used to do that a lot. That's when you'd throw the CD in and you'd get a CD ripper. And it would just extract all of the music from the disc and save it onto your computer in a readable format. So you could listen to your stuff on your computer without needing the disc. Could you imagine that?
Amazing.
You don't need the disc.
Yeah. That was crazy. Yeah. Mind-blowing.
Nuts. Yeah. You'd break out QuickTime or Winamp, fire those things up and play some songs. Oh my God, remember QuickTime?
Yeah.
I was a big Winamp guy.
Yeah, me too.
Winamp with the llama logo.
Yes. Yeah.
I had that, so many versions of that for years. That was great. But so once we had all the music stored on our computers, it was only a matter of time before we figured out how to share them with each other, right? So that's where file sharing, peer-to-peer file sharing came in.
Yeah. Yeah, that was...
And when that came in like
yeah.
fast and heavy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was big into the file sharing, really big.
Yeah.
I had so much music and videos and all that stuff. And
yeah, because you'd have your stuff from your CDs that you popped in. And then, maybe you borrow some CDs from friends. I used to do that too. Borrow a CD and then I'd rip it at home,
yep.
And then especially once I had the burning drive and I could actually burn those songs that I just got onto a CD, is basically like making a copy of it. But when the peer-to-peer came out, my God, I mean, you could just put in any song you wanted and you'd find it. Of course, you'd also find all kinds of cool new viruses along the way.
Oh yeah, that was bad. The viruses, and
it was an amazingly efficient way to give your computer a virus.
Yep.
Yes, it was extremely efficient at that. It was horrible. Yeah, because you'd just be blindly downloading files from other people's computers, which now when you think about that, it's like, really? Did we really do that? But yeah, we did.
So what was your preferred software for?
I would say the first one that I used was Napster when I was in high school. And then by the time I was in college, I tried using LimeWire a little bit, but I ended up going with Kazaa for a while. So those are Napster and Kazaa are the two that I use the most.
Yeah. So I used Napster very shortly. Obviously, it was pretty much the introduction to it. And then I came across Kazaa, and like LimeWire was putting restrictions on things and stuff like that. They were kind of filtering, trying to prevent the whole virus stuff and all that. So a lot of people, that was their go-to, but for what I was doing and stuff, like I wanted the unfiltered and the Wild West. So I went with Kazaa, and I was with them until, was forced to stop using them.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much, right? When they all kind of, fizzled out. Well, it became really hard to find a file that was what you wanted, first of all. And the virus thing really became rampant. There was so much malware, masquerading as legitimate files that you would want, that it was really kind of dangerous. And then at the same time, there was the whole legal issues were popping up by that.
Yeah. And I think for those that quote unquote knew what they were doing, I think BitTorrent was the go-to one. If I remember correctly, that was the one where if like
I think
you
that's
wanted
the one that kind of stuck around the longest.
Yeah, if you wanted full-length movies, high-res versions that were still in the theater, that's where you would get them.
I played around with that a little bit too.
Yeah.
Napster we used pretty early on because it started in Boston, so it started close to where I was, so it kind of took off at Northeastern University and spread from there. So
so when I was in college, I went to my freshman year, I was at Merrimack, and we had set up, I say we, a bunch of kids on campus set up their own peer-to-peer network, because obviously at that time they were shutting down Napsters and blocking all those peer-to-peer, so they end up creating their own. And it was so popular in the first 12 hours that it was set up, it took down the school network. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they were even, I don't know how they did it. I don't know if they had someone in the IT department helping them or whatever, but they ended up segregating off to the side so we could try and keep it going. But, after a few weeks, the school banned it. And if you were caught with it, you were in serious trouble just because it was wreaking havoc.
Yeah. All the colleges and other places started banning that traffic for sure.
Because you figure at the time it was Cat 3, Cat 4 cables. Yeah. So, I mean, the speeds weren't that big, and everyone was doing movies. Mm-hmm. So every dorm room, I had one of the suites. So there's 5 of us, and we pretty much had a server in our room, and that's how most rooms were. And it's just copying the movies back and forth. And when you're talking gig, multi-gig, 100 gig files over those slow networks, it was just bogging down.
Yeah.
But it was so fun. It was worth it. It's a good times.
Yeah, it was. It was fun. It was crazy how fast it took off. And, you went from, it was such a novel concept. Like, we had never had anything like that before. I mean, the whole internet was fairly new, it's still in its infancy, really. And all of a sudden, we're not just going online to chat and look at websites. All of a sudden, we're sharing files back and forth. It was just like, whoa, this is like a whole new step. And Sean Fanning, the guy, the founder of Napster, co-founder, I guess, he was everywhere for a couple of years.
Yep.
He was doing award presentations. He was on Time Magazine and all that stuff. He went from dropping out of college to, Time Magazine in like a year and a half. It was crazy.
And then getting sued by every record label.
And then, well, it was the Metallica thing that started it, right? It was Metallica suing that kind of ended it all. It was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, they were the big one, but I believe Dr. Dre was the other one. You had a lot of other big name artists that were banning all their music from it, like Garth Brooks. Up until probably 10 years ago, you couldn't get his music on any digital platform because of that whole Napster thing. They're like, we're not getting our royalties. We're not doing that stuff. And they put a halt to it.
Yeah.
But once all the physical media started dying off, they had to make that pivot to digital. But
it's like they weren't wrong. I mean, yeah, I get it. I didn't like it at the time because I enjoyed, ultimately, I guess, stealing stuff. We were all just basically, stealing it. But I guess they weren't wrong. I mean, it's just I think they went about it the wrong way. They should have embraced it and pivoted in such a way that, look, it's not going away, right? And now streaming is the principal means which people get music. So,
yeah, when was the last time you bought a physical copy of?
I probably never will again.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, if I ever do, it will be for some very strange, odd, specific reason. Maybe I know somebody who's got a record contract or something. It'd have to be some reason. Or I'm buying something because I'm going to meet the artist and get it autographed or something. Like I'm just not.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I bought one. There's a couple of times where I almost bought a vinyl because it's kind of making a quasi comeback. A lot of people are liking the vinyls and stuff. And
no, there's lots of people that collect vinyl for sure. Yeah, that is still, or I guess once again, pretty hip.
And there was a couple limited edition releases on vinyl that I was going to get, but I don't have a working record player. So.
Oh, well, wait, you don't have that? It's like the one thing you don't have? We got to get on.
I know. I was my parents were getting rid of theirs, and I always end up with all their old stuff, but my brother wanted the record player, so I let him have it.
Wow.
I know.
Maybe I'll dig up a Big Bird one to send over for you.
Dude, I am going to get a nice shelf behind me and just like, nice bookcase with all this stuff on it. Man.
But like for an audiophile, right? Somebody who's really into music and, they're a collector of vinyl, like that's fine. Like that makes sense because that's a hobby at that point. But, for the average Joe, like no one's really buying the physical media anymore. I mean, even we went to, once iTunes came out, which was, I think, 2001, it, you started to be able to buy songs for like 99 cents, right? It was 99 cents for every song. And it was like, okay, we can do this legally now and not download some crazy Russian malware. Sure, why not? I'll throw $1 at it. But like, we're not even doing that anymore, right? I mean, everyone just says, all right, I'll just pay a subscription per month and I'll have unlimited access to nearly everything. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Hey, it's Ronnie Moe here. Well, contrary to popular belief, I did not in fact drown during Kansas River crossing. Matt, thanks for that. Anyway, I'm here to bring you a brand new segment. I guess they wanted to bring in the old guy to talk about this month in pop culture history. On the music front, schoolboys around the world rejoiced when Australian rockers AC/DC, which by the way I've seen live 3 times because I'm old, released their Back in Black album in October of 1980. Epcot, the second theme park to open at Walt Disney World in Florida, opened this month back in 1982. I think I was a freshman in high school. No word on how long it took the first group of frat boys to drink their way around the world. In October 1985, Nintendo released the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System, in North America, revolutionizing the video game industry. A whole generation of kids would never look at green pipes and mushrooms the same way ever again. That's it for now. Time to throw it back to the Rad Dads.
All right, Sean, do you have any fast facts this week? I've got a couple. Yeah.
Ooh, we got a couple of math facts too. All right, I got a couple. You know what? They're fast facts. They're not.
Yeah,
quick
mine
ones.
are still the slow fast facts, but
Okay.
so the U.S. economy alone loses about 12.5 billion in total output annually due to the music theft. I did not think it was
Wow, that's quite a
that
bit.
much.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Especially in today's day and age with all the streaming and stuff like that seems high, but that's the figures that are coming out.
It does seem high because you figure now there's so many people who are subscribed to streaming services. That's a steady stream of income. You would think
Yeah.
that it wouldn't be that high.
And then music piracy also had notable impact on employment. Estimated around that 70,000 jobs are lost each year due to music piracy.
Hmm.
And then an interesting one that I did not know was Skype, the video calling platform, was based on Kazaa's peer-to-peer backend. That's how they got the free or inexpensive calling across the world, which I did not know.
I remember using Skype. I
Yep.
remember when that first came out. You had the little S logo all over,
Yep.
Every website, every phone number on a website have a little icon. You could click it and try to call it directly from your computer.
Yep.
Yeah, it had its moment.
Yeah, and then all the peer-to-peer music sharing platforms at its peak, Napster alone had 80 million registered users. So you
Yeah.
look at all those platforms, whether it was Napster, LimeWire, Kazaa, BitTorrent, there's another 2 dozen of them. Like you're in the hundreds of millions of people.
I guess that's where that 12.5
Yeah.
billion comes from. I mean, I know it's several years ago,
Yeah.
but still, I guess it shows the scale. So I've got a couple of interesting things. I focused more on the CDs and cassettes themselves. So this is going to make you sad. The shelf life of a cassette is only 30 years. So guess what? All of our cassettes from the
Are
90s,
done.
they're at their end of life. That's sad. We better go make some copies of those as soon as possible. Break out your old mixtapes, convert them to CDs or something, get them imported into
And
your computer.
I bet you most of the cassettes that we owned, the shelf life is way shorter than that because you leave them in your car. 30
Oh,
years
God,
is probably
yeah.
under perfect
Yeah.
conditions. Obviously, some are going to last longer, but
So
yeah.
I'm kind of curious now to find some of my old cassettes and pop one in and see how it sounds, see how distorted
the
it
tape is just going to
But,
snap once it starts moving.
Don't ruin it for me.
And you won't be
Spoiler
able to
alert.
rewind it.
Let's see. A 90-minute cassette tape is 443 feet long. That's how long the tape
Wow.
stretches. Yeah, it's quite a bit of tape wound up in that little thing. The Maxell and Memorex factories did a pretty good job winding those things up and tucking them in the plastic.
Yeah.
The first compact disc to be manufactured in America was Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA. in 1984.
Great record.
Yeah, kind of appropriate, right? The first American CD is Born in the USA.
Pretty sure that was planned.
Yeah, it must have been, right? That's not a coincidence.
No.
1 year later, in 1985, Mercedes-Benz became the first automobile manufacturer to offer an in-dash CD player in its vehicles. In 85, which surprised me. I mean, you figure CDs in 85 were cutting edge.
Yeah,
So-
that seems really early.
But it's Mercedes, right? It's a luxury car, so they want things to be on the cutting edge, I guess. And the last thing that I've got is an estimated 78% of music listeners are now streaming on a platform with unlimited choices. So that's, Spotify, Apple Music, things of that nature. So all totaled in 2023, there were 7.1 trillion music streams through those platforms. That's staggering.
That's a huge number.
Yep. So I guess when you look at it that way, I guess that's where I can kind of squint my eyes and figure out the 12.5 billion and 70,000 jobs. Maybe that is more accurate than I thought.
But all these numbers that you just said do not account for piracy.
True.
So if there's that much going through, like who is still... You're going to spend
that's true.
more
Yeah.
time trying to pirate music nowadays than just spending your $5 a month.
Yeah, if 78% of music listeners are doing it legally through a streaming service, right? And then another chunk are probably doing it through other means like the radio or satellite
Yeah.
radio. There's not a lot of percent left to be pirating at this point. So, I don't know.
Do we have anything in the mailbox or texting or reviews, any of that stuff?
Yeah, let's take a look. Let's check the reviews. Oh, I can see. Okay, so Spotify is showing we've got 5-star reviews. Look at that. It's pretty solid. Thank you all
Nice.
for leaving those reviews. Over on Apple Podcasts, we've got 3 5-star reviews. So pretty good. So thank
Wow.
you for those of you who took a moment to leave us a 5-star review.
Everybody listening, let's go. Let's pick up the pace. Get us some reviews.
Come on, you've got
Chop, chop.
homework.
Yeah.
You've got homework to do, So I don't have any comments on any of those reviews, the most recent ones, but that's okay. We'll still take it, but don't be afraid to leave us a review. Feel free to leave a comment if you'd like.
Yeah,
Don't
look,
have to give your name if you don't want.
it does look like we have a comment on YouTube.
That's great. Why don't you read that?
All right, so our YouTube comment is from Peter K. It says, I love Beetlejuice. So do we,
Yes.
Peter. That's why we did the episode. Thanks for commenting and listening to
That's
us.
great. Yeah, thank you,
I
Peter.
appreciate it.
Welcome aboard.
All right, so I think that just about does it for this episode. So you can follow us on Instagram at tworaddads. You can follow us at Facebook at tworaddads. You can email us your questions, comments, hate mail, or show ideas to tworaddads@outlook.com.
Don't forget to spell out the 2, TWO.
Yep. And please leave us 5-star reviews. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Okay.
Until next time.
Stay red. Okay, I gotta read. My God, I'm a hot mess. Okay, let me try that again. Okay, I'm just gonna say Matt has a big list.
Napster, DC++, Madster, BearShare, WinMX, SoulSeek, BitTorrent, Morpheus, Roguester, Kazaa, GNUNet, Audio Galaxy, LimeWire, FrostWire, Wireshare, eDonkey 2000, Amule, Shareaza,